Good evening, Honorable Lecturer Dr. Tommy Michael and colleagues. In this presentation, I will discuss the theoretical development of the area under 1982 United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, or UNCLOS 1982. I will also explain the institutional relationship between the area and the International Seabed Authority. And finally, I will offer rational legal and policy option for Indonesia as states party to UNCLOS. This issue is important because the area is not an ordinary maritime zone. It's not part of the territorial sea, the exclusive economic zone, or the continental set of any state. Under UNCLOS, the area means the seabed and ocean floor and subsoil beyond the limit of national jurisdiction. Its resources are declared to be common heritage of mankind, means that no state may claim sovereignty over the area, and no private actor may exploit it freely outside the international legal regime established by UNCLOS. Today, the issue has become urgent because of the global interest in deep seabed mining. Minerals such as cobalt, nickel, copper, manganese, and rare earth elements are increasingly needed for electric vehicle, battery, renewable energy technologies, and digital infrastructure. However, extraction from the deep sea may cause serious environmental harm to fragile ecosystems that remain scientifically underexplored. Therefore, the legal question is not only whether humankind may use the resources of the area, but how those resources should be governed, who should benefit, who should be responsible, and how the marine environment should be protected. 1. Legal meaning of the area under UNCLOS 1982. Part 11 of UNCLOS establishes the legal regime of the area. Article 106 declare that the area and its resources are the common heritage of mankind. Article 137 reject national appropriation by providing that no state may claim or exercise sovereignty or sovereignty region over any part of the area or its resources. These provisions create a legal category that differ from all maritime zone under coastal states jurisdiction. In the territorial sea, the coastal state has sovereignty in the exclusive economic zone. The coastal state has sovereign right over natural resources on the continental shelf. The coastal state also has sovereign right over seabed resources. But in the area, the legal basis is not sovereignty, it is collective stewardship. The area belongs neither to one state nor to a coalition of technology powerful states. It is placed under a common regime for the benefit of mankind as a whole. The principle of common heritage of mankind has several legal consequences. First, there is a prohibition of natural appropriation. Second, activities in the area must be carried out for the benefit of mankind as a whole. with special consideration for developing states. The financial and other economic benefit must be shared equitable. For activities must be carried out for peaceful purpose. Fifth, the marine environment must receive effective protection. Six, activity must be organized and controlled by an international institution, the International Seabed Authority. From the perspective of legal theory, this regime is a correction to the classical freedom of the seas. If areas beyond national jurisdiction were treated only as open access space, technologically advanced states and corporations could dominate deep seabed resource. UNCLOS transform this space into a regulated legal order based on solidarity, equality, benefit sharing, and environmental responsibility in scholarly literature. The common heritage principle is generally understood as combining non-appropriation, collective management, equitable benefit sharing, and consent for future generations. 2. The International Seabed Authority and its individual rule. UNCLOS does not leave the area without institutional control. It establishes the International Seabed Authority, or ISA, as the organization through which states, parties organize and control activity in the area, particularly mineral-related activity. The ISA therefore act on behalf of humankind as though its legitimate depend on whether it can translate the abstract principle of common heritage into operational rule. The ISA has several key functions. It regulates prospecting, exploration, and exploitation of mineral resources. It approves plan of work submitted by contractor. The supervised contractor and sponsoring states. It developed the mining code, consisting of regulation, standard, and guideline. It must also ensure effective protection of the marine environment and create mechanisms for equitable benefit sharing. The ISA has adopted exploration regulation for polymetallic radiol, polymetallic sulfide, and cobalt-rich ferromanganese crush. However, the commercial exploitation regulation have not been fully finalized. The draft exploitation regulation remain under negotiation, including issue of environmental impact assessment, inspection, complaints, liability, financial term, and benefit sharing. This means that the legal regime is moving from exploration toward possible exploitation, but the regulatory architecture is still incomplete. The situation creates a central tension. Contractor and sponsoring states seek legal certainty in order to proceed with commercial mining. Many scientists, developing states, and civil society group demand and precautionary pause until sufficient scientific knowledge, environmental safeguard, monitoring system, and liability rule are in place. The ISA must therefore balance economic expectation, environmental uncertainty, technological and equality, and the collective interest of humankind. 3. Current development. Deep seabed mining and environmental risk. The most important contemporary development of the area is the growing interest in deep seabed mining. The main resources are polymetallic nodal, polymetallic sulfide, and copper-rich crush. Polymetallic nodal contain metals such as manganese, nickel, cobalt, and copper. These metals are associated with the global energy transition because they are used in battery, electric vehicle, renewable energy storage, and digital technology. Support of deep seabed mining argue the seabed mineral may help supply critical mineral and reduce pressure on terrestrial mining. They often argue that land-based mining is associated with deforestation, pollution, human rights problem, and conflict. From this view, the deep seabed may appear as a new source of mineral for sustainable development. However, environmental concerns are very serious. The deep sea, one of the last understood ecosystems on Earth. Many species remain unidentified. Biological processes are slow. Habitat may take decades or centuries to recover, or may never recover after mining disturbance. Mining can destroy habitat, create sediment plants, generate noise and light pollution, release stored carbon, and disrupt ecological processes that scientists still do not fully understand. Scientific literature increasingly implies that deep seabed mining should be understood not only as a resource issue, but also as an environmental justice issue. The ecological risk would be borne by the global community and future generation, while immediate economic benefit might be captured mainly by contractor and technological advanced states. This would be inconsistent with the ethical meaning of common heritage if regulation is weak. For the common heritage principle, benefit sharing and intergenerational justice. The common heritage principle cannot be reduced to an economic slogan. It requires real benefit sharing, meaningful participation of developing states, and protection of the marine environment. Benefit sharing must not only mean financial payment, it should also include access to scientific data, technology transfer, training, capacity building, and institutional support for developing countries. This is crucial because the technology and capital required for deep seabed mining are extremely expensive. Without a strong benefit sharing system, the earth may legally belong to humankind but practically benefit only a limited number of states and corporations. So our result will contradict the object and purpose of UNCLOS Part 11. Intergenerational justice is also essential. The resource and ecosystem of the area are not owned only by the present generation. Future generations also have a moral and legal interest in deep seabed. If commercial mining causes irreversible biodiversity loss before science has adequately understood deep sea ecosystem. Humankind may lose ecological value that cannot be restored or compensated. Therefore, the common heritage principle must be interpreted as an integrated principle consisting of four elements: non-opposition, collective management, equitable benefit sharing, and environmental protection. If one element is ignored, the principle becomes incomplete. Commercial exploitation without environmental safeguard would violate common heritage. Benefit sharing without meaningful participation of developing state would also weaken common heritage. 5. Indonesian position as a state party to UNCLOS. Indonesia has a special relation with UNCLOS. Indonesian ratified UNCLOS through law number 17 of 1982. The convention is very important for Indonesia because it recognizes the concept of the archipelagic state, which Indonesia had long advocated in international diplomacy. Therefore, Indonesia has a strategic interest in defending UNCLOS as the constitution of the ocean. Indonesian interest in the area is not morally theoretical. As a state party, Indonesia participates in the legal order that govern the area. Indonesia has the right to participate in ASEAN decision making, to support equitable benefit sharing, and demand technology transfer and capacity building for development states. At the same time, Indonesia has obligation to protect the marine environment and to ensure that any Indonesian-sponsored contractor complies with UNCLOS and ISA rules. Indonesia must also consider the interaction between the area and coastal state interests. UNCLOS Article 142 requires activities in the area to be conducted with due regard to right and legitimate interests of coastal states, especially when deposits lie across jurisdictional boundaries. For Indonesia, an archipelagic state with complex maritime geography, this provision is important for long-term maritime security and ocean governance. Therefore, Indonesia should not treat the area as a distant issue. The governance of the area affects the credibility of UNCLOS, the future of ocean multilateralism, the right of developing states, and the protection of the marine environment. It also affects Indonesia's diplomatic identity as a maritime and archipelagic state. See? Rational legal and policy solution for Indonesia. My proposed position for Indonesia is continuous support with precautionary restraint. Indonesia should support the ASEAN as the legitimate multilateral institution to organize and control activities in the area. However, Indonesia should not support premature commercial exploitation before the legal scientific environment. Liability and benefit sharing framework are complete. First, Indonesia should strengthen its domestic legal framework. If an Indonesian entity participates in activity in the area, Indonesia would become a sponsoring state. Sponsoring state must exercise diligent and effective control over contractor. Indonesia therefore need rule on licensing, environmental impact assessment, financial capacity, insurance, reporting, benefit, ownership, sanction, and liability. Sponsorship must now become a mere formality. Second, Indonesia should establish an interministerial task force on deep seabed governance. This body should involve the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries, the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources, the Ministry of Environment and Forestry, the National Research and Innovation Agency, the Indonesian Navy, and University. The task force should prepare Research and Innovation Agency, the Indonesian Navy. The task force should prepare Indonesia negotiation position at the ISA and harmonize international obligation with national law. Third, Indonesia should invest in marine scientific research. Without scientific capacity, Indonesia will remain a rule taker rather than rule maker. Indonesia needs expertise in deep sea ecology, seabed mapping, marine biodiversity, use ocean technology, environmental monitoring, and international maritime law. Scientific evidence is necessary for credible participation in IC negotiation. Fourth, Indonesia should promote an ASEAN and global South coalition. Developing states need collective bargaining power to ensure that the common heritage principle is not dominated by state with technology and capital. Indonesia can advocate equitable benefit sharing, technology transfer, transparent decision making, public access to environment data, and stronger capacity building. Fifth, Indonesia should demand and exploitation regulation include strict environmental standard. These standards should include environmental baseline, transparent impact assessment, independent scientific review, regional environmental management plan, inspection power, emergency response obligation, and care liability for damage. Environmental protection must be a condition of legality, not merely an administrative appendix. 6. Indonesia should defend multilateralism. Any attempt to mine the area outside the ISA framework would weaken UNCLOS and create a dangerous precedent. Indonesia should consistently reject unitarianism and support the principle that activity in the area must be organized, carried out, and controlled through the ISA on behalf of humanity. 7. Main argument and conclusion. The development of the area UNCLOS 1982 show a transition from normative idealism to regulatory realism. At the normative level, UNCLOS declared the area and its resource as the common heritage of mankind. This is an idealistic and progressive principle. It reflects solidarity, equality, peaceful use, benefit sharing, and justice for developing states. At the regulation and regulatory level, however, the what most answer difficult practical question: who my man? Under what standard? Who monitor environmental harm? Who pay compensation? How are benefits distributed? How are future generations protected? How can developing states participate meaningfully? These questions so that the common heritage principle must be operationalized thought, concept, rule, institution, and scientific standard. For Indonesia, the rational answer is not total rejection and not unconditional approval. Indonesia should support UNCLOS and the AISA, but it should also insist on precaution before commercial mining begin. Indonesia should strengthen domestic law, build scientific capacity, lead developing state cooperation, demand equitable benefit sharing, and ensure strong environment governance. In conclusion, the R is one of most important legal innovation in the modern law of the sea. It creates a maritime space beyond national jurisdiction that is not governed by sovereignty, but by the common heritage of mankind. The future of this regime will depend on whether the international community can ensure that deep seabed resources are governed for peace, justice, sustainability, the benefit of humankind as a whole. Thank you.